Let's get into Week 10 studs and duds before we close out the show. Studs and duds, obviously. People that we think are going to exceed expectations. And people we think they're going to let you down. And we're just calling our shot. We're making our call here. And I'll go first, Wes. Is that okay with you?
Yes, please.
All right. So just before I give you my stud for Week 10, I just got to say one thing real quick. Or sound one thing real quick.
Yeah.
Shoo, 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 shoo. That's right. My stud for Week 10 is Rondale Moore, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. If you're not familiar, go look up Jonathan Gannon, Rondale Moore, because that was just.
What does he say?
We'll probably put
fireworks.
We'll probably put this. He's like shots, rockets, or like something like that. And it's just like, what are we doing here, dude? Like, what?
I forgot.
So
what a clown.
Who knows? We'll probably clip this and put it on social media because, gosh, I can't believe that the whole punishment from Impractical Jokers this year is that someone has to coach the NFL. That's incredible. Listen, talk about Rondale Moore for a second. To go off of West, your call, I can't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago when you called Tyler Boyd to be I believe it was 2 weeks ago because the 49ers were on a bye week last week. 2 weeks ago, you called Tyler Boyd a stud. And it was kind of like I think we need to, let's talk about some players who are kind of out of this. I kind of have a spotlight here. Somebody that maybe on a week where the Eagles are on a bye week and you don't have A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, or the Dolphins are on a bye week and you don't have Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, or the Rams are on a bye week and you don't have Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, or the freaking who's the other one? The Chiefs, or the Chiefs are on a bye week and you don't have Travis Kelce or Isaiah Pacheco or Rashee Rice. Here's somebody that I think we need to just get a little reminder and refresher on. Now, here's the thing with Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore was quietly very solid with Kyler Murray in 2022 last season. In fact, when he was on the field last year from weeks 4 through 10, he was the wide receiver 17 in that time frame. He was a top 24 wide receiver 4 of those 7 games that he was playing. And I think he's got a chance to pick back up right here. I mean, we've seen Jonathan Gannon sure thinks highly of him. Shoo, 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 shots. Shots, rockets, shots. Here's the thing. Michael Wilson, third-round rookie wide receiver for the Cardinals, missed last week with a shoulder injury, limited this week. We'll see if he ends up playing. He may not play on his full snap count, but also that's a third-round rookie wide receiver that Kyler Murray has not taken a snap with this in his NFL career. I think there's going to be a little bit of rapport that we build back up here, and I think we're going to see Rondale Moore be more involved with this offense. James Conner is going to be back. Obviously, Marquise Brown is going to be there. Trey McBride's going to be on the field, and Rondale Moore is going to be there. We've seen Rondale Moore take snaps out of the backfield this season. I think there is actually a reality where Rondale Moore ends up like a top 24 wide receiver this week. He was getting peppered with targets whenever he was playing with Kyler last season. I think he could be. We could be looking at like a 6 for 70 or 6 for 80 kind of week. Maybe he gets in the end zone. I like Rondale Moore this week. I'm starting him in a couple of leagues actually because of this bye week madness, and I'm excited about Rondale Moore. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here. I'm starting him over Jacoby Myers against the Jets with Aiden O'Connell in one of my leagues. That is where I'm at with it right now with this. It's a dart throw, but I'm feeling good about it, and I think Rondale Moore has a real shot to be a fantasy asset this week. So we'll see what happens. But Rondale Moore, I'm calling a Week 10 stud.
And it's because of Kyler Murray. It's because Kyler Murray is under center. And I was considering for my studs, I was going to say Marquise Brown. I was like, fire up Marquise Brown. But Marquise is rostered like everywhere, and people are very likely just starting him out of obligation. Like, well, I don't have a better option. He's been fine. So it didn't make much sense for me to try to pitch like, hey, start the guy you've already been starting. But Kyler Murray's effect is going to be significant. And I like I like what might happen here with Arizona. I've got a good feeling that these next couple weeks are going to be strong for the Cardinals offense as Kyler wants to prove. Speaking of number 1 picks overall, this guy's like, hey, I'm him. Okay, there's a reason that I was drafted by 2 different sports leagues, and that I'm here for a reason. Jonathan Gannon signed up for the Cardinals head coaching job with Kyler Murray in mind. He didn't go there thinking like, well, maybe I don't have to coach him. No, this is part of it. I like this Cardinals offense for fantasy a lot. Very good choice for a stud. And I looked at Rondale Moore, and as has been the theme of this season, we've taken each other's players often. So I don't have Rondale Moore in a lot of options in a lot of leagues because you've taken him. So
he is on a lot of my rosters. Yeah, 100%. Tell me who's your stud for Week 10 before we jump into some duds.
Oh yeah, well, I am feeling pretty good about this. Not really much to say. Kind of teased it earlier in the episode when we talked about the news. I'm just reaffirming that Tyler Boyd should be in your starting lineup. There is obvious starting stud potential when you don't have T. Higgins. And Jamar Chase may not be there. Even if Jamar Chase is there, T. Higgins has been seeing a bunch of targets over the last several weeks and has been heavily involved in this Bengals offense. So Joe Burrow is quite familiar with Tyler Boyd already. This isn't just next man up mentality. This is you want 16 points? Tyler Boyd could probably get you that this week with what might be happening. They're going to play the Texans. Texans defense is not all that hot. It's going to be hopefully a shootout. That'd be pretty nice for all fantasy reasons. Yeah. But Tyler Boyd should be in the lineup, not just get him off the waiver wire and maybe he does half decent and you can trade him, or in case of another injury, you have Tyler Boyd. No, this is the week you start him. Absolutely, you must start Tyler Boyd if you've got him. So he's my stud for this week.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think, we texted on Thursday, Wes, and when the report came out that it was T. Higgins was missing this week and was going to be looked at as week to week, I said, man, I feel bad because we just said 2 weeks ago, like, God forbid something happens to one of these Bengals wide receivers, but get Tyler Boyd on your roster because he's going to step into a bigger role than he already has been given. And here we are. And so I fully agree with my league where I have Tyler Boyd. He's being rolled out 100%. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not too worried that, the whole thing recently had been, in the past couple of years, has been you don't play receivers or quarterbacks against the Texans because you just run all over them. That hasn't really been the case in the last few weeks. The defense has gotten a little bit better. Rookie Will Anderson Jr. They're playing better as an offense. So, like you said, hopefully there needs to be some more scoring going on. I agree fully that this Tyler Boyd stud take is going to pay out again, and I'm excited for it.
Epic. We're on the same page. Oops. All right. Duds for this week. Big, important players on a bye week. Who should we still not start?
Well, we're back in Maryland, and we're making another trip to Dudsville because Gus Edwards is my Week 10 dud. Listen, 3 straight weeks of 17-plus fantasy points. He's been the RB1 in that time frame. He's scored 6 touchdowns over the past 3 weeks. He's been awesome. He's been fantastic. I've loved having him in my lineup over the last 3 weeks. Obviously, I didn't get that for week 1 because I called him a dud. But I've had him in there since then. The last 2 weeks of great success with him has been awesome. He was the RB1 2 weeks ago in fantasy football. He's been great. Here's the thing. 51% of his fantasy points have come from touchdowns in that time frame. More than half of his fantasy points, 36 of his 70.2 PPR fantasy football points in that time frame have been from getting into the end zone. In fact, last week he scored 17.7 fantasy points. He touched the football 5 times in that game. 5 times. He had 5 touches last week, and he turned it into 17.7 points on an 18% snap share. Now, Keaton Mitchell could be emerging. John Harbaugh has come out and said, yeah, we're gonna try and work him in a little bit more. He may be nursing a hamstring injury from practice, maybe from the game. We'll get some reports on that today. But I'm a little bit worried about him emerging. And Justice Hill last week, even though Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell both outscored Justice Hill played 63% of snaps, when Gus Edwards played 18 and Keaton Mitchell played even less than that. So I'm just a little bit nervous here about Gus Edwards. Here's the icing on the cake, is that the Cleveland Browns have allowed 2 rushing touchdowns to running backs all season. The Cleveland Browns defense is no joke. We've talked about it already. They're fantastic. But they're not giving up rushing touchdowns to running backs. And so in a week where we're looking at Gus Edwards' last 3 weeks' performances, he's been incredible. A lot of the production has come from those rushing touchdowns. We've got this Todd Monken offense that's like, hey, he's going to sling the ball. Like, Lamar Jackson hasn't thrown a passing touchdown in like over 2 weeks. It's got to come back to, we've got to regress back to where we should be at here, regress to the mean a little bit. I'm worried about Gus Edwards. I think we're taking another trip to Dudsville this week. I think we're going to see more Justice Hill. I think we might see a little more Keaton Mitchell, and I think Gus Edwards will come in maybe on packages inside the 5, and if you're starting him, you're hoping he falls into the end zone. But personally, I'm starting Ezekiel Elliott against the Indianapolis Colts over Gus Edwards this week against the Browns. Zeke plays in Germany. It should be a good game. The Colts give up a lot of points to running backs. I'm starting Zeke even with Ramondre there, and I feel fairly confident in that decision. So Gus Edwards is a Week 10 dud in my eyes.
You drive a hard bargain. I mean, he's on a roll. He's on a roll.
He is on
right
an
now.
absolute tear, dude. Which stinks is because I love Gus Edwards. Like I'm a big fan of Gus Edwards. He's finally stayed healthy. He's finally getting the opportunity that he's deserved over the years. But when half your fantasy points over a 3-week span come from touchdowns and you're going up against a team that allows only 2 touchdowns to running backs rushing all year. He's not a PPR guy. He's not going to take a screen into the end zone. Like, it's not like that. He's not in those packages. So that's just the hard part. I get it if it's through bye weeks. You have to start him. You're hoping he gets in the end zone. But I'm starting guys like Zeke over Gus Edwards this week.
You make a good point, and I know a lot of people are not going to take this advice because he's been on a roll, and it is on a bye week with some of the best running backs in fantasy are off. But at the very least, I don't own Gus Edwards in any league, so it's much easier for me to kind of just contemplate what you've shared with the class. But at the very least, this can be an opportunity for someone to try to make a trade offer.
Right.
Using Gus Edwards, or at least give some warning, some caution.
Yeah.
With in the event that Keaton Mitchell does end up taking over in the explosive home run plays.
Right.
But ultimately, because I've noticed this too, the snap count is not actually in Gus Edwards' favor. It really is in Justice Hill's favor.
Yeah.
It is. He's not the main back. I mean, Lamar Jackson is still going to be one of the first options for carrying the ball. It's going to be tough. If he walks out of Dudsville again and ends up in Studsville after you call him a dud again, then you can't ever say he's a dud no matter the match. If he does this against the Browns, then you've got to lock him in for the rest of the year.
It's gonna be. If it happens, it's gonna be exactly what happened last week. He's gonna get 5 carries. He's gonna break. He had 5 carries for like 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of the carries was a 45-yard run that he broke away. Then he had 4 carries for 12 yards, and he fell into the end zone twice. Like, if it happens, it's happening that way, and you take the L. But like. I can't see it happening. I think this game will be competitive. It's a division game. I think the Ravens are going to need to be throwing the ball more. I think this is going to be more of a offensive passing attack than it is a running attack. And as soon as I see one of those Ravens players go down at the 2-yard line, I'm just going to turn the TV off because I'm going to know what's going to happen.
Right. The inevitable. Okay.
Yeah, see what happens.
All
Who's
right.
a dud for you, Wes, before we close out the show?
Same division. We're going to stay here in the AFC North. This will be the third player of the AFC North. Yeah, it's going to be time to just bench George Pickens. We don't. Oh, are you scared? I'm curious, just for fun. Who did you think?
I thought you were going to say Zay Flowers, who was a dead candidate
Oh,
for me
no.
But we'll see.
No, Zay Flowers is still the wide receiver 1. George Pickens is not the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh anymore. That's the deal. That's the problem. Without Deontay Johnson, George Pickens was a potential hopeful play because he had some games where he was PPR heavy. He had some games where he just got lucky and found the end zone. He had some games where he had a couple catches, but one of them was like 50 yards. And it was like, all right, he finds a way to get double digits every now and then. And now Deontay Johnson's back, and we saw what happened. Man, George Pickens is good, and they should be utilizing him more, but Deontay Johnson is better. And not to mention, let's not forget, because it was last week on Thursday night that we were like, hold up, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren look like they could actually be a legitimate duo here. And Najee Harris looks as good as he did his rookie year. So let's not forget that. Let's not discount what's happening on the ground game as well. And it's tough because George Pickens has a nice little name value because we know that he could be something. But I can't start George Pickens. I've got him in some leagues, and I'm not going to start him. So I encourage you to do the same if you've got GP.
Yeah, GP14. Yeah, no, I fully agree. And here's the thing. We said it last week, like you said, Wes. Deontay's back. He is the alpha wide receiver. He is the guy. George Pickens will still probably get 4 to 5 targets a game. They're going to be deep ball shots. And that's the comfort level with Kenny Pickett. That's where he wants those targets to go. But Deontay Johnson has a good chance to even start cutting into those. So I fully agree. Last thing I'll say, did you happen to see, I saw a video this week on social media about just because George Pickens there's a little bit of drama on social media. He had
he unfollowed
his Steelers photos and
stuff.
unfollowed the Steelers and then like reposted and was like, they put on a story. It was like, yo, like just tripping about a post or something like that. And it was just kind of, I think he was, from the naked eye, it was like, yeah, he's throwing a fit. He's kind of pissed off. And then somebody went back and found footage of after Deontay Johnson scored his touchdown. And Wes, I don't know if you saw the video when he's on the sideline and he's just like,
I saw him do that.
So
Yes.
Yeah, so just over his right shoulder, a little bit out of focus on the bench while his teammates are celebrating with Deontay Johnson is George Pickens with his mask thing up over his mouth and just showing his eyes and a little bit of his nose. And he's just sitting there.
The heck is his problem?
Just stone faced. Just pissed off that he's not getting the attention anymore. I know. And he's just, it was throwing a fit. And then we saw what happened on social media. So it's, yeah, George Pickens is no longer relevant.
Well, now you drop him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, drop him. Get him out of the whole server of whatever platform you play fantasy on. It's disappointing. He has big play potential, but I don't think you can feel confident starting him now that Deontay Johnson is back. So I fully agree. George Pickens is a dud for this week. So